Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 7 of Critic and the Common Man. Tonight, there has been not one, not two, but 3 murders, of which we must get to the bottom of. What is going on, guys? Episode number 7 of Critic and the Common Man. We have a murder mystery afoot. Today's murder mystery episode brings 3 awesome movies here.
What do we got, Danny? What do we got?
Yep. The main one being Knives Out. Recently popped up onto Amazon Prime. Great movie. Then we watched Murder on the Orient Express, Agatha Christie, great work. And we're going to wrap it up with a little bit more lighthearted one, Murder Mystery, starring Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston on Netflix. So we've got a really fun episode for you guys today. As always, this has been your first and only spoiler warning for the evening. And myself, Danny Poirot, and Chris Benoit, the 2 detectives on the case today, will be going through these movies. Let's start it off, Chris. Let's talk about Knives Out. A lot of people went and saw this one in the theaters, including myself. And even more people, of course, watching it on Amazon Prime. What do you got for Knives Out? What'd you think? Oh.
I'm here.
And he's back.
Knives Out. It's funny that we're starting with that one. Okay. Knives Out, I actually really liked. I thought it was, when I first watched it, I thought it was very well written, like incredibly well written. There's so many good things that I can say. I mean, the cinematography was amazing. The writing it kept you on your toes. There's representation that's brought up throughout the film. I mean, there's so many things that I could talk about. And after I watched it, not this last time that I watched it for the podcast, but the very first time I watched it, I told myself that I wanted to write a paper on it. Overall, I thought it was a great movie. I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. This, so I went and saw this one in theaters, and then prior to watching it again for this podcast was actually the only time I've ever seen this. So I've seen it twice now. I picked up more on it the second time. Did like this movie, definitely. Have a lot of notes about this movie, so you're actually going to see me with the notebook here for once. I've got some notes about this. The first one being detail. This movie has so much detail in it, and I think you can definitely appreciate it, Chris, even in especially in the cinematography of this movie. This movie is riddled with detail, and it's enough to kind of keep you thinking throughout the movie. The scene, or the setting, I should say, in particular, in the mansion where most of this takes place, every scene, the backdrop is just completely filled with little things that catch your eye, different books or taxidermy animals, or the throne made of all the knives based on his stories. Just an incredible attention. Game of Thrones. Yeah, it definitely looked very Game of Thrones-esque, but just incredible attention to detail throughout this whole movie. Thought this was incredibly well shot. And I don't normally pick up on that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not a film critic here. I just go to these movies and, talk about whether I enjoyed them or I didn't. But that just stood out to me immediately with this one, was the level of detail in this. Now, I don't have only positive things to say about this movie. Unfortunately, I do have some negative things too. But I remember leaving the theaters really liking this one. Watched it again on Amazon Prime now that it's on there for free. And again, still like the movie, but let's talk about the detail in this movie, Chris. And then from your eye specifically, what is having that kind of detail and that different backdrop in the scenery, what does that do for a film? Because I feel like it kept my mind, the gears turning more than they would have been for that entire movie.
So without sounding pretentious, which I'm going to sound pretentious, everything that you see in a film is done on purpose. Everything. With the exception to like everybody who watched Game of Thrones, the Starbucks cup that was in the Game of Thrones. There are accidents, but pretty much everything that you see that is in a shot was placed there intentionally, and it's called mise en scène. It's French for stuff in the scene. That's what it means.
Okay. And
the mise en scène is used to basically kind of inform the audience to try and paint the picture and try to sell the world that we're a part of, So, when you're looking at Lord of the Rings, like the elvish, filigree on the walls and stuff, the detail in Gandalf's cloak, stuff that you're never ever going to see unless you're actually on the set, but it's there and it enhances the detail, it enhances the realism and it just makes it more immersive for us as viewers. So when you have a movie like this, the most important thing is to make it feel like from the time period that it's based in, you know?
Right.
And not just that, but to also kind of like show us what the family is like that we're seeing in this. And,
you get character of the author just from reading, just from looking at the house that he lives in, all of the things on his walls. You can get that he's kind of eccentric and kind of, he has a lot of charisma. You really do pick up on his character just
like
from the setting in the house.
Who has a throne of knives like that? Like that's, that just shows you, you know, like the kinds of things that he is into. It's funny because I get a lot of the same weird vibes that you get from the professor in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Right.
I get that same vibe from this guy. Super interesting character, and you can't help but like him.
I liked Harlan a lot, and he and Ana de Armas' character I thought were very good. So Harlan both and Marta in this I thought had good chemistry together. And again, he's a charismatic actor. Christopher Plummer is a charismatic actor. I haven't seen Ana de Armas in anything else, or that I know of. But I liked the character in them, and I think you get more of his character just because of the kind of eccentric house that this whole story takes place in.
Yeah. I mean, I really like that it's funny because the movie is a murder mystery, but it's not really a mystery because we know the story. We're just,
right.
You know, we kind of know it before the characters do. That's the only difference. And so it's a stressful movie for us because we're watching her try and get out of this situation.
Right.
Whereas everybody else is trying to figure out what happened. And so it's just interesting because, you know, like when she's leaving the footprints, or he finds, you know, the broken what was it, the thing that she climbed to get to the window.
Up. Yeah,
things like that where you're like, oh my god, like really, man, like you couldn't backtrack, or when the old lady is watching her through the window, you know, things like that where you're just it adds to the suspense, and it makes you really like you're clutching your seat like, please don't catch her, because this dude is good. You know,
this movie was kind of interesting because it's a murder mystery, and that's what it would be defined as. But it's also kind of a thriller. And I wouldn't say it's like a classic murder mystery. Like if you're watching this as part of the full podcast, if you're just watching this individual review, just know that this is part of an episode where we're going to review Murder on the Orient Express, which is an Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie, of course, is the traditional murder mystery where you are seeing the story through the eyes of the detective and sort of solving it with him or her throughout the story. This movie's not really like that. It kind of starts out like that, like you're not really sure what happened. But very quickly, like you said, you're led into what actually happened, or so you think. You're led into what actually happened that led up to his death. You know that he died. You know who was there. You see him die. So a lot of that mystery is just gone. And it kind of blends into a thriller, which I actually didn't really like as much, because I thought if it's going to be a murder mystery, let it be kind of a traditional murder mystery where you're kind of solving it as you go through. But for what it was, kind of going through a thriller, I agree with you. You figure out what happened so early that it sort of changes the tone, and it becomes, you're not trying to solve his murder anymore. You're sort of seeing this thriller unfold, and then there is a good twist at the end. But I would say that what makes this kind of different than maybe a traditional murder mystery is you couldn't have watched this movie through the first time and solved it before they gave it away. There weren't those clues weren't you could guess, sure. But based on the clues you got in the movie, I don't think it would be possible to solve this without having been told what happened. Whereas in a traditional murder mystery, you could kind of pause the movie before they reveal who did it, and you could actually gather evidence from what you saw in the movie, the little clues that are left behind, and then you could make a presumption. If you were a good enough detective, you could solve the case just right there. You can't do that in this movie because it's not really a traditional murder mystery. It's more of a thriller. It's kind of on that line where it goes from murder mystery to psychological thriller, sort of.
Yeah, it's like,
and I think that takes away from this movie a little bit, being in that class. But go ahead.
I feel like it was a murder mystery that was made for entertainment rather than for,
definitely,
you know, for those fans who really want to, like, I want to solve this before the end of the movie kind of a thing, you know.
Definitely.
I mean, that's what it feels like to me anyways. And you know, there's a lot of comedy in this. There's a lot of, you know, moments that, you know, kind of make you chuckle. And like the fact that she can't lie without throwing up. Like, it's funny at first, but then it's also one of those things where it's like, oh my God, she has to lie. Is she going to be able to do this? You know,
Right. And that I actually thought took away from this movie too. I thought that was a little bit cheesy, and I thought it was a little bit of lazy writing to kind of have her with this fail-safe, lie-proof thing. So let's talk about the writing on this movie for a little bit, because it, like we just said, it's a murder mystery, not necessarily a traditional murder mystery where you're kind of solving it as you go. But what did you think of kind of the story, the inheritance that's being taken away, and so the family lashes out, and then kind of how the case came together? What did you think of this one, just from a plot perspective?
So I actually think the plot is very clever. I like that, it's making fun of murder. It's very much calling itself out on the fact that it is a murder mystery, in the sense that it's a traditional trope. It's like the family inheritance that everybody's feuding over,
Yep.
and it's, you've got the uncle, and you've got all the whole family there who's just wanting this money, and they are dysfunctional, as they tend to be in most of these movies. But so I really like that essence of it. I think it's clever, that it's willing to be the trope but also call itself out on it, and that's how you get past that. That's how you get people on board with that. You have to be willing to make fun of yourself in that sense, as a movie. But what I liked most was Harlan, or Harlan?
Yeah.
Harlan,
the author.
Yeah. I like that what you're getting from the movie is that it's this father-daughter relationship, basically, between the two main characters, and that he is willing to die for her, where he's like, that to me just says so much about the character, and you're immediately on board with him, like his eccentricism.
Definitely.
and you feel bad that he's about to pass away, but then you're like, dude, like, how many people would be willing to take those same steps that he did, where he was like, stop calling the ambulance. I think the writing is just very clever. It gets you interested in the character very quickly. It gets you on his side very quickly and on her side, and then throws you into this suspense. And also, like, I really like the fact that at the end of the movie you have that cup that says, like, my house, my rules, I think is what it is.
My house, my rules, my coffee, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And I love that because it's a complete throwback, but it ties the entire theme together, it ties the story together. So not only is it clever writing, but it was totally put in there intentionally from the beginning. Like, they had that same cup in the beginning with a shot of close-up of it and everything. So the fact that they put it in shows that they were doing that on purpose, and I think that that's very clever. It's intentional directing.
I agree with you that this was a very well-written movie. It was so well-written, and the twist at the end was so interesting that I thought it really let itself down. Yeah, I thought it really let itself down in a couple of the choices that I guess the director made in this movie. The one that stands out the most to everybody, kind of the big takeaway that people are talking about, is Daniel Craig's accent. I thought that was a horrible decision. Anna de Armas's vomiting, I thought that was a little bit lazy compared to the rest of the twist. And then just some of the things, like some of the things that happened throughout the movie, like just like when Anna de Armas is going around with Daniel Craig, and she's kind of helping him with the detective work, and she's messing all the stuff up. The movie was so interesting, and the plot was so gripping, and you wanted to know what happened, that I thought certain things like that I would say were flaws in the movie really stand out. And kind of, I won't say overshadowed the movie. I still liked the movie a lot, but I thought they were just unnecessary additions to the movie. Specifically Daniel Craig, with the choice they made for him with the accent.
So this is, I don't know if you remember, but I mentioned earlier in one of the other episodes how there's a thing called the invisible director, the invisible hand.
Right.
Where you don't see anything of, like, the director's choices. This movie is the complete opposite. Every single shot is intentionally placed. Every single thing that you see, you can feel the character of the director in the film. You can see their intent. You can see their thought process, and the way the shots are laid out, and the way that the mise en scène is placed in the scenes. It's very much a director's movie, and I think that it's there's good things to it and bad things. It's called formal directing. It's formal filmmaking, which means it's very much by certain rules. The shot has to be placed like this, and without going too much into it. And there's strengths to that, because it adds value, I think production value to the film. It adds a sense of professionalism, and it makes you see a little bit of what the director is like. But some of the weaknesses that you see is that if you don't like the choices that they make, it really weakens the movie. And so it's kind of a hit or miss thing with movies like this. And I did read some reviews where people were like, "This movie's awful. This movie's terrible," And so
yeah, and I don't think it's weird. I don't think I would ever call this movie awful. I really liked this movie, actually. It's a fun watch.
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't think so. Knives Out is not based on any book or anything, right?
I don't
Was
think
there
so.
a Knives Out? I think it was just a story written by the director, and that's fine. It's good, but I think there's a big difference between watching a movie like Knives Out and then watching a movie like Murder on the Orient Express, where one is based off of a phenomenal author in Agatha Christie, whose whole story is completely well thought out. It's wrapped up. You're in this murder mystery the whole way. And then there's Knives Out, which visually is fantastic. It's got a great cast, but the story I would not say is quite as enthralling and quite as believable as something like an Agatha Christie, who is kind of a once in a generation type author, is going to be able to create. I like the in all senses of movie making. I thought this movie was phenomenal. Again, the scenery was incredible. The story was really fun. I actually came away from this really liking the cast, and I don't even think. The weird thing is, I don't even think Daniel Craig was the wrong choice for that role.
No.
I think Daniel Craig is the right
great.
choice for that role. I think his accent that they chose for him was stupid. I think it was unnecessary. I think that he's trying to do the Savannah drawl the whole time.
See, I
Now,
agree with you and disagree with you on that.
Okay, what do you think?
I think he was. So I agree with you in the sense that it was unnecessary, because you're right, it is unnecessary. It's like, what is the purpose of asking him to do that, Or maybe it was a character choice on his part, I don't know, or maybe it was written into the film. Right. And the thing is like when you have a movie and it's, written by somebody, it's kind of messed up to change the writing. So if it's written in there that, that he's from Georgia or whatever, as a casting director, you go out and you say, okay, I'm looking for somebody that can do a Southern accent or that is Southern, because the script calls for it. Now, unless the director wants to be that guy or that girl and change that choice, then that's on them because they're the director. But I don't know. I don't know if the script called for it or not. However, I don't think it was terrible. I think it's different than what we're used to, and I think that because we're so used to seeing him as the James Bond, we see him as this aristocratic and well-poised, person. And so I think that it's kind of hard for us as an audience to get away from that, but I don't think that it took away from the film to hear him do that, although I do think that it was unnecessary. I don't think there was any reason or any point to making him speak like that. It didn't push... The movie would have gone on just as well without him speaking in that,
Yeah, I think unnecessary is the right word, because don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it was terrible either. I don't think that. But I think it detracted from the movie that was otherwise really well written. Now, I agree that this movie has some comedic essence to it. It's not a just full-on serious murder mystery movie. There is comedy in this, and that's fine. But I just think that, and this is my stance on a lot of things, you guys are going to hear me say this over and over again, when you choose to have a character that so much of their character in the movie is wrapped up or is described by a big character trait like a big Savannah drawl accent, maybe pick somebody who actually speaks like that. Just because, and certainly if you're going to make somebody kind of force it, certainly don't make it Daniel Craig, who we all know doesn't speak like that. You know what I mean? Even the oh my gosh, what was his name in the movie? The KKK leader guy from Django. What is his name? Don Johnson's, who played Richard in this movie. You know him? He had kind of that in Django. He had that goofy Southern accent, and it was funny. It was kind of a goofy thing, but they could have gone with something.
I can't see, you can't see. So what? All that matters is can the fucking horse see?
Yeah, they could have gone with something like that, I think, and it would have been fine. I just think that for a movie that was otherwise very well written, great twist at the end. I wouldn't say it's like a traditional murder mystery where you're trying to. They want you to try to solve it as you're going along, but I don't think it's possible. If any of you guys are watching this and you were actually able to solve this movie the first time through, without just guessing, without just
should be a
saying, "Oh,
police
I think,"
officer.
yeah, exactly. Like if you actually were able to sleuth this thing and figure it out, then good on you. But I don't think it's possible based on what they gave you in the screen. I think you would be guessing. Whereas in other murder mystery movies, like in Agatha Christie, you can actually pause the movie before he deduces who does it. And if you were good enough, you could solve it based on the things that the clues you were actually given in the film. I don't think you can do that in this one. Because it became kind of an interesting psychological thriller twist. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know. But maybe I just wasn't picking up on it. But I didn't see the way to solve this. But I just think, going back, I just think that because this movie was so well written, I thought that really standout goofy things like that, like Daniel Craig's accent, while they aren't terrible, I agree, I thought they took away from the movie. I just didn't think they added anything to it. It could have easily been, he could have either spoken in an English accent, or if they thought that was going to be too serious, maybe cast it as somebody else. Not that Daniel Craig's not a good actor, just cast it as somebody who fits that role a little bit better.
Right. No, I agree.
Speaking of cast, what did you think of the cast in this movie overall? Because I actually thought the cast was very good.
I did too. And one of the things I was worried about was Chris Evans being in this. And I actually really liked his character. I thought he played basically the opposite of Captain America in this, and I thought he did it pretty well. You know, he was kind of an asshole. He was at the end of the movie, you know, he's out for himself basically. And so I was worried about that, and I'm glad that I was wrong. I love the girl who plays Martha.
Ana de Armas.
Yes.
Yeah, Martha.
Yeah.
She's very good.
I think she did a fantastic job playing this like fragile little bird, but you know, towards the end of the movie, she finds her strength, and I really like that. And I mean, yeah, I think everybody did a really good job of kind of playing that like, we're not racist, but we're kind of racist thing. Like, you know, they were just making making underhanded, you know, remarks and stuff like that. You know, she's from Paraguay or whatever, you know, like, or I think she actually is from Paraguay or something, but they were like, she's from Honduras, or, you know, like they were completely naming the wrong country. But you know,
and even Chris Pine's character is like, you're Brazilian, like he like calls her
multiple
Brazilian
times throughout the movie they do that.
Yeah.
Where, you know, they're just they're trying to be nice by trying to pick the right country, but they always pick the wrong country. I thought that was funny.
I really liked this one, and then unfortunately, once we actually figured out what happened, once the murder was solved, and it was not so much of a whodunit kind of thing, it was more of just a thriller, and you're going along seeing how she's going to get out.
Right,
I thought
like when
it
the
kind of
cops are
started to
chasing her and
decline a
stuff?
little bit. Yeah, I thought the movie did decline a little bit, and I
agree.
would chalk that up to writing. I think this wasn't a like as well of a thought out murder mystery as maybe like a traditional one that's based on a book. So again, great movie. But, you know, it's interesting because when you look at this movie and you look at the scores that it got, you start to kind of understand why they make these movies the way that they do. Not saying that this was a bad movie, but, you know, a movie like Knives Out, which did very well, a lot of people went and saw, is not as well written or as like in depth as kind of a traditional murder mystery. But maybe people like that. People like a little bit lighter, kind of more comedic, more, you know, big name kind of movie, and that's what brings people to the theaters.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, that could be it. Overall, I thought the movie was great. I thought it was.
It's fun.
It's exactly.
Very fun.
And the acting is good, and I like the little bits of comedy that are in it. Like, what makes the movie good is that there's moments of seriousness, there's moments of you know, your stress and all that, but there's also the downside of that where we have a moment to kind of collect ourselves. There's a laugh or here, you know, whatever, and then it rises back up in tension. There's a dynamic to the movie, and so we feel like we're on a roller coaster. We feel like we're on a ride. We're not, you know, like what Uncut Gems did, where we, you know, where the entire movie we're like, you know, gripping. You know, it's very stressful, and it makes it not fun. In a movie, not that a movie can't be controversial or you know, anything like that, but you know, it should be, it's a form of entertainment, and at the very least it should be enhancing that, you know, whether or not that's, you know, a horror movie or whatever. And so I really liked that the movie did that, you know, that there was dynamics to it, like I said. But yeah, overall I thought it was a fantastic movie. It wasn't the greatest movie I've ever seen, but it's definitely up there as one of my favorites now.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of these murder mystery movies anymore. And those are, my wife and I, that's a favorite genre of ours. So this was fun to, when we first saw the trailers for this, we were immediately, and we knew we're going to see this one for sure. We wanted to see it. And we didn't leave disappointed. We had a lot of fun with this movie. It's a little bit more lighthearted. It's not the traditional where you're trying to solve it. You get the twist at the end, and then you can say you knew it the whole time, but I don't think that's possible just from watching the movie the first time.
Yeah.
But so this movie did phenomenal in the box office and got incredible ratings. A little higher than I think I would have given it myself. But, man, Rotten Tomatoes loved this one. 97% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 92% audience score. So Knives Out, Chris, what did you think of this murder mystery movie?
It is a film that is very present with the director, like I said. The cinematography is fantastic. The set design and the production value is through the roof. I mean, it's honestly, it must have been so expensive to film this thing, just to even rent out or, create the CGI or, I don't know how they did the mansion, but that place is unbelievably gorgeous.
Right.
And then the amount of acting and everything, all the big name actors that they brought in. I thought they all did a fantastic job acting. I thought the score and the sound did a good job of enhancing the feel of the film. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. I think 97 is a little high, but I sit strong with like an 8 out of 10. I think it was a good movie. It was worth my time, and I would absolutely watch it again.
Cool. Yeah, I think this one, again, because there's not a lot of these murder mystery movies coming out anymore, and this one had such a popular cast and felt so modern just in the trailers, I think a lot of people were really interested in this, including myself, and went and saw it and liked it. It's a fun genre. It's a fun genre of movie. It kind of goes hand in hand with that thriller genre where it translates extremely well to film. From book to film, these murder mysteries do a great job. I think that's why they translate well to theatrics too, stage performances and things. But
I think
I'm with you. Go ahead.
Sorry, just before you finish, I think that what would have helped the movie a little more is that you've got this guy's death scene. This that's the whole movie revolves around this guy's death and what his will is and all that. And I think that what would have helped the movie is that we as an audience find out very quickly what the noise was upstairs. We find out very
Right.
quickly who killed the guy because within 30 minutes we know.
Yeah.
And so I think what would have helped it is to kind of draw out that suspense a little more, that mystery, because people went into this wanting to, watch a whodunit kind of thing. And I don't know, I feel like everything just kind of solved itself very quickly, and then it became instead of a mystery, it's like it switched genres halfway through, and I think that's the issue. For me anyways. I feel like it got us behind this character, killed him off. We wondered who did it. And then we found out who did it, and then we're on her side now, and the whole movie became a thriller about her, and so it didn't feel like a mystery movie, even though I guess technically it was.
Right, you said it perfectly. That's kind of my same gripe with this movie. I thought this was a very fun movie. Again, we don't get a lot of these in theaters anymore, and maybe that's just the demographic of the audience shifting. Not a lot of people are reading murder mysteries anymore. Who knows what it is, but I liked this one. This is fun to see these type of movies. It did phenomenally, and I'm glad to see that. But I think that this movie was kind of boosted by sort of a modern feel and look and cast, and so it got more people to the theaters. But I wouldn't say this is a traditional murder mystery where you're kind of solving the crime as you go, whereas some other ones like an Agatha Christie would be. I liked it. I thought the writing was very good. I thought it was so good that the flaws in this movie really stood out. I would say Daniel Craig's accent was a flaw. I don't think having him in this movie was a flaw. If you want him just for the star appeal, don't force the Savannah accent on him. I thought that was a little bit too much. Also, I thought the narration of this movie was strange because normally in a murder mystery movie, we would be watching this movie as Daniel Craig. We would be kind of seeing this as him, solving it with him, picking up the clues with him. This one is kind of a third-party narrator that kind of just, you're watching the movie as it kind of unfolds from all different angles. And I think that's just because, again, it's not the traditional murder mystery. Very fun movie for sure. Was it the greatest murder mystery? I don't think so. I like this one a lot. I've heard they're going to potentially make a sequel with Daniel Craig as Benny Benoit, or what is it, Detective Benoit, coming back into it. Benny Blanc or Benoit Blanc or however you pronounce it. But I'll be interested to see that one. They're very fun. This one for me gets an 8 out of 10. I liked Knives Out. It's a fun movie. Look forward to watching a sequel if they make it. A couple things I think they could have done a little better. I think the sequel will inevitably fall flat because I think Daniel Craig's character was a little bit of a letdown in this movie, and he will be the tying factor in the next one. So I don't know how well that'll do, but we'll see. So that's it. So an 8 out of 10 for me. And then would you say 8 out of 10?
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 it is. And that's it. So that is the Critic and the Common Man review of Knives Out. You can find this one on Amazon. That's right, Amazon. Fun movie. It's a lot of fun to watch, man. I really enjoyed watching it, but there were a couple things that in the writing I thought were a little cheesy.
Yes.
And that's it. Cool. All right, man. You want to move on to number 2?
All right. Let's. So we're doing Orient on the Murder Express.
Mr.
That is a whole other
Poirot, we are moving on to Murder on the Orient Express. We are perhaps the greatest detectives in the world.
Forgive me,
for
I
this.
am Belgian.
Yep, Hercule Poirot. Murder on the Orient Express. Wow, I feel like a lot of people did not even go see this movie, and that is such a shame. This, of course, we can't talk about this movie without talking about the genius that is Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie wrote Murder on the Orient Express as part of the Hercule Poirot series.
Right?
Oh yeah, man, it's way back. So I got some stats about Agatha Christie because she is pretty incredible. So let's go through this real quick. If you watched Murder on the Orient Express and you didn't know this, you should know something about the writer of the story, who of course made a bunch of different ones. Agatha Christie was born in 1890. Okay, she served in both world wars as a hospital in the hospitals, during which she was studying the poisons that she later would reference in a lot of her murder mysteries. So it was her work in the hospitals during the 2 world wars, studying the effects of poison and poison remedies. She took a lot of that research and actually put it into her stories, which I thought is just incredible. Agatha Christie, let's see here, is the most translated individual author of all time. And the story, And Then There Were None, which is one of her biggest murder mystery stories, one of her most famous books, is one of the best-selling novels of all time. Agatha Christie has 33 Hercule Poirot novels, so if you think we're not getting a sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, you are wrong. They're already making one based on the story Murder on the Nile, which should be phenomenal. And there's
that's
potential.
funny 'cause they reference that at the end of the movie.
They do at the very end. So there's definitely some information in there for the Agatha Christie fans. Based on how well these do in the box office, there's potential to see a lot of Hercule Poirot, and she was appointed a dame. So we are now speaking about Dame Agatha Christie, who of course was born somewhere in England. I don't have exactly where she was born, but she is phenomenal. My wife's favorite author. I've read And Then There Were None. It's an incredible book. This movie I thought was a fantastic testament to her. I thought they did a really good job with this movie. The cast was great. This was a lot of fun. Chris, what did you think coming in and watching this one, Murder on the Orient Express?
I thought it was terrible. I thought it was awful.
I hated it.
No, I really enjoyed it. Within the first few minutes, I loved his character and the OCD that that he just gives off. With the eggs aren't perfect; they're not the same size. And and you like him because he tells the kid, it's not you, it's the chicken. I'm blaming the chicken. Why would a chicken make different size eggs? And I thought that was great. And then when he steps in the, I'm guessing it was horse shit, but when he's just like, it's not that, it's that it's only on one shoe, so he has to step on it with his other foot. And
he's a man of order.
Yeah, and so you get to like the character very quickly because he speaks his mind, and you immediately know that he's a very intelligent man when he puts the cane in the wall,
right.
Just because he's already like 10 steps ahead, and he knows that guy's gonna run. He says, "Hey, and we need a guard on the south exit."
Yep.
Knowing that he's gonna run back, and then runs right into that. It's such a good intro to get the insight into who this character is and how he's going to be basically the one who pushes the story forward for the last, hour and a half of the movie or whatever.
Agreed. It's very fun. It's very fun how they set up his character and his credibility in the beginning.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. That it didn't take that much for them. It was basically like your own mini murder mystery in the front of the movie, and it's a phenomenal way to set up who this character is.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone who read Agatha Christie and went into this watching it, I think, is a big part of the audience for this. Probably people who have read the book, but then a lot of people who didn't. It's got a great cast. It's a phenomenal way of setting up Hercule Poirot and his genius. Who he is. It gets you really into his character and kind of ramps the energy up in the beginning of this movie. I thought that was very well done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love that it kind of jumps from, I didn't catch what city they were in, but I'm guessing it was like Accra or Jerusalem or
Yeah.
but I love how it just goes from there to Istanbul, and then it just jumps to a completely different type where it goes, through the forest, and then all of a sudden you're in the snow, and it just switches gear, almost like preparing you for what's to come. And then the cast that they chose, like
Very impressive.
Johnny
cast.
Depp, Josh Gad. I mean, so many big name actors that like you immediately like, I know that person. Wait, I know that person. Like you're immediately like Daisy Ridley. I was not prepared for the amount of actors that they put into this movie. And the writing is so funny. Like it's not really a comedy. I wouldn't call it a comedy.
No,
but
no.
when
I would
he
say
has
this
to-
is a traditional murder mystery in
Yeah.
every essence of the word, based on the best to ever write them.
But when Hercule like speaks, to people he doesn't like, he gives them such a polite put down that like they're not aware that they're being insulted, but like we as an audience when we're listening to him, like when he has to bunk with Josh Gad, with Mr. McQueen, and
I am equally disappointed.
I am equally disappointed. Like that was just I started laughing.
Yeah,
Like he's a great character. He really is.
I'm really glad that they made this movie, and I'm excited for them to make more. We'll get into the ratings on this movie later. I don't want to jump ahead to that, but I thought that this was a masterclass of acting by Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot, and this is a murder mystery in the most traditional sense, where you are the movie is told through the eyes of Hercule. You are following along with this. You're solving it as it goes. It's very much like reading the book, where you could pause this movie before he comes in and explains what happened. You could pause it, and while you wouldn't know the backstory of all the characters, based on the clues that they give you throughout the movie, you start picking it up. And this was a very fun movie to watch a second time, because it's one of those movies where once you know what happened, you immediately can see, wow, okay, yes, I picked up on this, and while they're very slight, if you were, in fact, the greatest detective in the world, you could potentially solve this one without ever being told the conclusion there at the end. If you can, Chris, edit in, we'll see if there's going to be a copyright issue, but edit in one of the scenes in which Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot is angry and he's screaming and he's kind of slapping the table, and we'll put that in here. Because I think that is a probably one of the best kind of acting performances, especially as a leading role, that we've seen in a long time. I thought he was really good, very convincing as this character. He knew who the character was. He went in with the characteristics and kind of the attitude that Hercule Poirot was going to have, and he set up the character phenomenally.
And it's basically the only time like his emotional range is pretty steady. Like he's a very composed person, the character.
Right.
And then when you have moments where he loses his temper, like you're seeing, like instead of this, person on a soapbox, basically, where the whole world, is kind of like under his observation and everybody looks up to him, you're seeing a human character. And I think ultimately that's his character arc is, at the end of the movie, he has to learn how to live with the imperfection of that he solved the crime, but he can't give them justice because they don't deserve it, or
right, and
he can't.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you have to understand too, when you're watching this movie, that this is a character that's already been set up in 33 novels. So he is kind of above some people in the sense that like he's held to a really high regard. He's kind of the hero of these stories. He's the main character for sure, and he is going to solve this crime. He's going to go on to the next one. He's going to solve that too. He's going to go on to the next one. It's very Sherlock Holmes-esque, where Sherlock is sort of the god, if you will. He's kind of at the center of everything, and that's very much like this with Hercule Poirot. Same kind of story. That's what happens when you're dealing with a character like that that's based off of this character that's been set up through so many novels.
What I like is that it is very much like Sherlock Holmes in the sense that it's the same genre and the same tropes and everything. But for me, Hercule feels more real. He doesn't feel like a superhero, almost like Sherlock Holmes does, where he's just so overdone.
Well, he has no, yeah, and he has no sidekick. He has no
Right.
Watson, and I think that helps. He has no Robin. You know what I mean? He's just Batman. He's kind of the he has to solve this in himself, and so he agreed with you. He doesn't feel so much like a superhero. He just feels like this. He feels more real. He feels like this character that you're seeing. He's very methodical. You're seeing how he's deducting all of these things, how he's getting to the bottom of this crime throughout the movie. I loved it, man. I thought this one was a lot of fun.
I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Let's talk about visually. We talked about, if you're just watching this review, not part of the episode. So in this episode, we just actually talked about Knives Out. So we're doing a whole murder mystery theme. If you're watching, if you're still with us, you know that. So let's talk about, like, as we did for Knives Out, let's talk about the scenery and kind of the setting of this movie, because it's very claustrophobic. The whole thing, or most of it, other than the beginning, takes place on a train. What did you think of kind of the cinematic effort of this movie?
Well, train sequences are very difficult to shoot from what I understand, because it is in such tight quarters, and even in modern day, you know, cameras are still bulky. You know, they're not as huge as they used to be, and there's definitely alternatives to getting in tight corners and stuff. But there's one sequence when they find Mr. Ratchet dead, and the entire thing is filmed from the top down.
Yep.
And then you see them go into the next room, and like the entire thing, like you can see them walking the corridor, and then you're in another room, and then they come back out. Like that whole thing is insane. Speaking of cinematography, I was blown away within the first 15 minutes when Hercule has solved that first crime. He is asking his friend to help him get onto the train, and the entire sequence from when they're walking onto the platform, you see them walk all the way, and then the camera kind of turns around, and then they're walking up to the train, and he's finding out that they can't get on, and then he gets him on the train, and then the camera is still one shot following alongside the train as he walks through each car, all one sequence for like, I don't even know how many minutes that was, but that was unbelievable cinematography. So whoever did that, good on you, and the camera operators, the director of photography, and the director for setting up all of the timing that had to happen for that. I was blown away. That was an amazing sequence.
You're right. I never even picked up on that, but you're right.
Yeah.
The cinematography in this was phenomenal.
Yeah. I really, really thought that the cinematography was like probably some of the best in the world.
It's fun. It's fun watching a movie that kind of takes you to a different time also, because this one was so steeped in elements of being taken in a different point in time. Johnny Depp's character, you actually have to travel to conduct international business. You can't just do it from a computer or a phone, you know what I mean, or a conference room.
Now, this
These
whole
people are
movie is like
traveling
post-World War
around.
II, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So I'd have to look at the exact timeline of when this.
Because they
movie was
talk about the
supposed to be
war,
set.
but with the way that some of them don't look like they're old enough to have served in the First World War,
Right.
you know, and so
So what's really interesting about this movie too is the same character, Kenneth Branagh, who played Hercule Poirot, he also directed this movie. He also actually just directed Artemis Fowl,
Yeah, he
which
did
we're not
Artemis
even going to
Fowl,
talk
which we
about
tore
here.
apart, and he also
I
did
don't blame him.
Cinderella.
I don't blame him for that. You can find the Critic and the Common Man review of Artemis Fowl too. It's I don't blame him for that. There's a conglomerate of things of circumstances that went into that movie being so bad. But Kenneth Branagh both led in and directed this film, so huge props to Kenneth Branagh. Yep, like I said, I would say this is a masterclass of acting from him. I thought he was completely convincing. I ended up really liking Hercule and really kind of understanding him and agreeing with a lot of what he was saying. This movie is also interesting, and I think it sucks, man, and I need to be careful here because I'm going to end up on a high horse real quick, sounding like an asshole. I hate that this movie wasn't as popular as a movie like Knives Out because it's such a traditional movie, and I almost just wonder if we're dealing with an older audience, that maybe the Agatha Christie fans are a little bit older. They're not the ones reviewing or flocking to the theaters for this. I hate that this movie didn't do as well, quote unquote, as a movie like Knives Out. And it's just because I think this movie was kind of, people saw the trailers and they didn't know the story.
Yep.
They thought it was kind of a little bit just sort of out there. It had a big cast, but not as big as like a Knives Out. You know what I mean? Not quite as big as that, although it did have a big cast.
Well, you have to think about what movies came out that same year too.
Yeah, and that's definitely a factor. That's definitely a factor. But before we actually give this movie a rating, because I have more to say to this, but as just a talking point, we're going to give you guys the Rotten Tomatoes score of this, early because I want to ask you about this, Chris. This movie kind of flopped, Rotten Tomatoes wise. It got a 61% critic score and a 53% audience score. And this is another example of where I feel like Rotten Tomatoes is just way off. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not giving this one a 10 out of 10, but I certainly loved this movie. What do you think these scores say in terms of audience and in terms of what kind of movies are coming out right now?
Well, you have to think, too, that the scores are heavily weighted. So if one person gives it a 1 and everybody else gives it a 7 or an 8, that brings the whole score down.
Yeah, it messes with the mean.
And so, but I agree with you. I'm not going to say it's a 10 out of 10 either, but I think I don't know what it is. There's definitely some issue. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that maybe a lot of the critics that are writing for Rotten Tomatoes are now part of a generation that doesn't understand the films for this generation.
Maybe.
In the same sense that a lot of the reasons that, newer movies from older directors are not doing well because these directors are using old techniques for an audience that no longer wants those things. Like George Lucas trying to direct those prequels, they were terrible. And it's because you have to know when to hang the hat. And I think he did that for these next sequences. And I mean, whether we liked the new set of Star Wars films or not, they did revitalize the story. And so I think it's just a matter of finding critics who are relevant. And then sorting through the what's it called? The reviews that the common people would leave.
Common men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair enough. And again, like I said, let me get off my high horse here because if it hadn't been for my wife, who is an avid reader and a big Agatha Christie fan, I don't know that I would have even gone and seen this one. And I would have been really disappointed.
See,
I guess I really wouldn't have known what I was missing. Right. I wouldn't have known what I was missing. But you're talking about the best-selling fiction author of all time, period. She is the best-selling fiction author of all time. She's phenomenal. But if you asked a lot of people my age or your age who she is, again, prior to meeting my wife, I probably wouldn't have known. And that's a shame. That's a shame because I really hope we see more sequels of this. And I hope that these scores and how it did at the box office doesn't hinder that because I really loved this movie. Mm-hmm. And this is also a true, like I've said, this is a true murder mystery, as true as they come. This is based off of a book. You're solving this as it goes. But it does almost feel like you're a little bit, in some sense, watching a play. The dialogue does feel like it's from a book, maybe a book that was written in the early 1900s or mid 1900s, maybe. I don't know exactly when it was written. And I don't think that resonates with people as well anymore. It's certainly not the younger demographics that are going to these movies. But man, I hate it. And I know there's not much I can do other than put this information out on the small platform that we have. But if you're watching this review because you watched this movie with us and you want to see what we think, I love this movie. I thought this was a damn good movie, and I really hope they make more. If you never, if you're watching this and you never saw the movie and you're thinking about watching it, please give it a shot because you don't see a lot of murder mystery content anymore. You really don't.
I agree.
It's all thriller stuff now, and even Knives Out, which is kind of the murder mystery of the 2019, 2020s, it kind of divulges into a thriller. It's almost like, and again, I'm being careful. I'm going to sound like a real asshole real quick. But it's almost like people want to kind of turn their brains off a little bit. And you cannot do that in this movie. You have to think. That's the fun of it. You're trying to solve this. You're putting an effort with the movie. I think by people rating this movie so low, I think they're missing the mark. Okay, sure. Some of the dialogue was a little cheesy. Was it the best acting I've ever seen? Not from everybody. So again, it's not a 10 out of 10 movie, but it's really fun to go into a movie like this and try and solve it. But if you're going into a movie like this to try and see a thriller, I think you're missing the mark. Yeah. This is not supposed to be a thrill. It's thrilling because you're getting clues and you're being a detective. You get to be a detective with Hercule Poirot, just like you would in the books, and that's a lot of fun. I guess a lot of people just don't want to do that. And I guess people just aren't as into that.
If you're going to a movie theater to basically, like if you're only going to go to a movie to see a 10 out of 10 movie, you're going to be waiting forever.
Yeah.
Good luck. There's very rare movies that hit the mark as like some of the best movies that have ever been made. There is a physical list of the best movies that have ever been made. And many of the movies that are on that list are movies that some people don't like. And so, you're never ever going to find that perfect movie. You need to be willing to see the movies that, and I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about this podcast is that I am seeing movies that I don't think I would watch if it wasn't for this.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm glad that I watched this movie, and I'm absolutely at some point I'm going to watch this movie again because it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
It's actually, I think it's actually more fun to watch it for the second time because when you know what happens, you pick up on a crazy amount of detail. Again, props to Kenneth Branagh, a crazy amount of details and clues that, again, if you were to watch this movie through the first time, you could solve this murder or make a very educated guess. And whereas in a movie like Knives Out, I think you're kind of just shooting in the dark a little bit. Like you might say like, oh, I think Chris Evans' character did it. Well, that's fine, but I think you would pretty much just be guessing. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to say, oh, he switched the vials and then he was the one that was sent.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's no way. Like, you would be guessing in order to get all that. Yeah.
No way. So let me ask you this. Did you have any idea that it was all of them or who did you kind of think did it? Did you have any guesses or did you really not know?
I was trying to figure it out and I couldn't for the life of me. I'm not a good detective. I will tell you that right now. If you are ever murdered and the only person around is me, that will be left
unsolved.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like there's going to be a board behind me with string everywhere to all of these question marks. I'm not good at it. And I think I'm a very intuitive person and I pick up on cues and I couldn't figure it out. I would never ever have made the distinction that it was. I honestly thought that it was like somebody broke in through the window and left and it was going to be like, it was none of you, you're all free to go. And it turned out to be the opposite. It was all of them, everybody.
Right. Well, and everybody has such a motive, and that's kind of the cheesiness of the story, or it's not cheesy. That's how this happened. They did that on purpose. They all got on this train, but they all had connections to the Armstrong case, and all hated. Oh my God, what is his name? What is Johnny Depp's name? Ratchet. They all hated Ratchet.
Mr. Cassetti.
So, yes,
and Mr. DVDE.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is where I put little legs, like a DVD, and a cassette tape, and they have little legs, and they're going to dance across the screen right now.
Oh, Jesus. Here they go.
Great. I'm giving myself work. What am I doing?
Yeah, have fun editing that. Exactly. They all were kind of in there. They all had motive, and so it gave you a chance to do it. I guess people just, I don't know. I wonder if there's really much of an audience now for these murder mystery movies. I think it did fairly poorly in the box office, and that's a shame. I think this is a really fun movie.
Yeah, I mean, the last murder mystery movie that I can think of besides these that we're watching, like Clue is the only one that I can think of back from the 80s. Clue. Like I think you're right. It's one of those genres that just kind of died out, kind of like the Western.
Maybe.
I think people just want more of that like thrill factor. We want gore and we want action and blood and sex. And I think that's unfortunate because we're missing a lot of the good chances to think and use our brains and be entertained in a different sort of way. But you know what? This movie probably had a great audience in Britain and you know, places where
probably,
you know, where this type of movie is a little more accepted.
Sure.
Yeah, I know because I've met everybody in Britain. So like that's.
Yeah, you know all of them. Hey, it's Chris.
Yeah,
hey, everybody.
Right? Hey, I was trying to think of somebody with a British last name and I can't think of it. Mr. Potter. That's about as American as
Harry.
I guess. Wow.
It's old Harry. All right, man. So again, this one, 61% and 53%. Man, that rubs me the wrong way, unfortunately. But what did you think of this one? Just to wrap it up, and what would you give Murder on the Orient Express?
So, incredible acting, except for I can't remember her name, but basically the girl who got all of them together.
The not the mother.
The one who was wearing the wig.
Mrs. Hubbard.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. Hubbard. I liked her throughout the entire movie until she gave that last speech, and then I felt none of the emotion from her. Which sucks because that was like her moment to like, you know, make us, and I just didn't like her acting in that scene. But other than that, the acting was incredible from everybody. Johnny Depp has an insane ability of doing accents so perfectly. Like he's able to just be a different character in every movie, and I don't know how the fuck he does it. But
he gets away with it.
Yeah, man, he's incredible. And
that is a pet peeve of mine, but even I agree, he gets away with it.
Yeah, but yeah, I thought he did a great job for the little bit that he was in it. And you know, Josh Gad, Daisy Ridley, everybody. I don't know everybody else's because I haven't seen them in a lot of stuff. But the doctor, I thought he was fantastic.
He's very good.
And the fact that he's a sharpshooter and missed, you know, it just shows you a lot about these characters. They did little things to
real quick, did you know that Marwan Kenzari, who was the guard, like the train guard guy?
Yeah.
Did you know he's what's his name in the Hercules? Oh my god, damn! In the Aladdin remake, he's the villain. In the new Aladdin. Did you know that? That's the same guy.
No way.
Yeah, that's the same guy. When you watch it back, you'll see
in
it.
the remake of the Aladdin movies.
In the with Will Smith, yeah, in the Aladdin
What?
remake, he's the villain in that. Yeah.
I actually
That's
can
him.
see that now. I can see that.
Yeah, look it up after this. That's the same guy. It's funny.
Wow.
But sorry, I interrupted you.
No.
Go ahead.
But yeah, no. Okay, so the cinematography was strong. The acting was strong for the most part. The setting was perfect. I really liked everything because it totally feels like a time period piece that is set in a claustrophobic space, so it makes you feel like you're stuck there with these people. And the fact that they did this with, I guess, what I would call like a ticking time bomb, where the guy said, okay, we have, like we're stuck in the snow. 2 hours and 6 minutes ago, when we didn't show up, they will have known what happened and they're going to send somebody. And so now you have this ticking time bomb that's going off where like you have this amount of time to solve the case. Otherwise, it's going to ruin everything for this conductor or this director of the train. So they just did a really good job of just upping the stakes and the tension, and then having the detective just be so invested in this all of a sudden because he's a good person and he can't let this. He doesn't want to see somebody hang for this that doesn't deserve it. And so he's like, what? Fine, I'll do this. And he's not getting paid for this,
Right.
And so overall, just fantastic characters. Everything about it was just really good. The only thing that I didn't like was how fortuitous everything kind of came to at the end. And you're right, it's that it was a little cheesy that everybody on this train was there for this one guy, which isn't too far fetched because that's the whole point. And the movie even mentions it. It's 12 people whose lives were broken because this guy murdered a little girl. And so that's what it ultimately comes down to. It's, this detective who is trying to solve this crime, and he's trying to live with the fact that, these people committed murder, but he deserved it, and he has to live with that. He can't be the one to pass judgment on them, so he lets them go. And so, it felt a little cheesy, but it also felt right. And so I don't know if that's just a weird choice, or maybe it's, the way that it was in the book. I haven't read the book, so I don't know. Maybe, back then it felt a little less cheesy because the trope didn't exist yet when the book was written. I don't know. There's a lot of different things.
Right.
But to end my rambling, overall, I give the movie, I think somewhere between, I'm going to give it an 8. Okay. It was worth the watch. I would absolutely watch it again. It was funny. It was clever. It was smart. Everything was great in this film. I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought that the Kenneth Branagh, right?
Kenneth Branagh, I believe.
Branagh.
Or Branagh.
Kenneth B.
Kenneth Branagh. Yeah.
He did a fantastic job, and I would love to see him reprise his role in a second. I really would.
Yeah.
And I love that they kind of. See, I didn't know that there was another book. So I like that they kind of hint at the end. It's funny because when I watched it, I got the feeling that they were hinting at something because he was like, no, this one's all the way, there was a murder on the Bloody Nile, and the way that they kind of just hung on his face for a moment. I was like, there's definitely something there like that, I don't know about, but
Yep. Cool. Yeah, I agree with basically everything that you said. I thought this did a good job. It was a good testament to Agatha Christie, who clearly a phenomenal author. Her resume, precedes her, or her reputation kind of precedes her in this. She's great. I think it's a shame that this one got as bad of ratings as it did. And again, I just think the demographic is a little bit lost on this one. But just such a fun movie to sit down and watch and kind of go through and try to figure out. I hope you guys liked it too. I am very much looking forward to a sequel. It's fun to watch a movie where your brain really has to be on. And like you said, this is kind of a dying genre. We don't get a lot of these. And I think that's why Knives Out was so popular, because it was, a big murder mystery that was coming out and people thought it'd be fun. But then it's kind of solved for you. So again, your mind is taken out of it. This one is a true murder mystery. You're solving it as you go along. Really, really well done. Good acting for the most part by everybody. I will also forfeit that there were some cheesy lines. It wasn't the greatest acting by all of the supporting characters, and that's why, this one's not necessarily a 10 out of 10. I thought they did a great job of setting up Poirot's character. Kenneth Branagh did a great job throughout this movie, and then the story was just well done. It's obviously well written. We already know that.
It was really fun.
It translated really.
Getting to see his gears turn and watch his process.
Definitely.
You know, like that was the best part.
Definitely.
When he's looking at all the
Agreed.
clues and he's like, you know, we have 6 different clues here, but only one is genuine, and it's just really cool seeing him process everything. It was great.
I hope when they do make a sequel, they don't end up making it become a thriller, because that's where the market is going. I hope it doesn't turn into a thriller, because I thought this was very true to the book and very authentic, in that it is you're solving this as you go along. I loved it. This one gets a 9 out of 10 for me. I think these Rotten Tomato scores are they're all over the place. Sometimes we agree with them, and sometimes they're
9
just
out of 10.
not even
That
close.
that rarely happens with Danny over here. So.
Yeah, it's true. I just think for what again, we're rating these movies based on their genre. This is a murder mystery, so I'm not rating this as a sci-fi or as a comedy. It's not one of those things. It's a murder and suspense kind of movie, and who better to do it than Agatha Christie? And I thought Kenneth Branagh did a great job of doing this. This was phenomenal. I can't wait for a sequel. I hope it comes out soon. Murder on the Nile, I believe it'll be called. I loved it. So that's it. 9 out of 10 for me. 8 out of 10 from the Critic, and that's going to be the Critic and the Common Man review of Murder on the Orient Express. You can find this one on Amazon if you haven't watched it. You can rent it on there. Really, really fun movie. Definitely worth a watch with the family. A true murder mystery, a true whodunit. You're going to be able to figure it out with them as you go. Great movie. And that's it. Cool. All right, Chris. So moving right along, the last movie of the day very much fits the theme in the title, because it is literally called
Murder Mystery.
Murder Mystery. Yeah, take us into Murder Mystery, man.
So Murder Mystery is a movie where Adam Driver and I believe Daisy Ridley reprise their roles as Kylo Ren, except Daisy Ridley is playing Luke Skywalker. So it's a gender-bent Luke Skywalker played by Daisy Ridley, and they're trying to figure out who exactly killed Darth Vader.
Oh, I can't even listen to this, dude.
You just quit. You just leave.
I can't even listen to this.
So Murder Mystery. It's funny because I believe the company is Happy Gilmore, right?
Yeah, the production company.
Right.
I think so.
Because it's Happy Madison and
Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore.
Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's right.
That's how much I love those movies.
Right. Right.
I am not a fan of the production company, but very occasionally they will release a movie that I like, and this is one of those movies, which is funny because I don't think this movie got good reviews. I don't think that most people liked it. I really enjoyed it, and I don't know if it's because I just like that kind of clever, almost improv humor, but I really did enjoy this movie. It's basically a movie about a husband and wife who are going on their 15-year too late honeymoon. He happens to be a detective or a police officer who's not very good at his job, and she happens to love murder mysteries. They get invited to a yacht where a murder happens, and the whole thing turns into one of her books, and I think it's just super clever. So I mean, that's really what the movie's about. It's obviously it's a comedy, so you have to go into it with that mindset, and you have to be willing to kind of turn your brain down a notch, because you can't go into this expecting it to be an Academy Award-winning movie, because it's never going to be that.
Right.
Before we continue, my camera just died. Let me put in a new battery. But basically, before we were rudely interrupted by my camera's dying battery there. Rest in peace. Yeah, I mean, it's a very clever movie, and you have to go into it with that mindset that it's not going to be an Academy Award-winning movie. I don't know. I don't know if the writing was improvised or half and half or something, but there's just something so clever in the way that Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston had this back and forth with their characters that I found hilarious. I thought they did a great job with their banter. And I've watched it a couple times now, and the more you watch it, the more you pick up on their little quips at each other. And there's just something very real about it, something that only couples would do, like when they're arguing, or she's saying how he's a terrible shot and all this stuff, and he's just You know, like
He barely got out of the academy because he couldn't even meet like his minimum marksmanship skills.
Audrey's lactose intolerant. She also burps in her sleep.
What?
I just thought because we are discussing each other's flaws right now, you wanted to put it out on the table.
I'm sorry, I better listen.
Yeah.
they're just so good at they had some good chemistry.
Yeah, they
and
did.
and the characters were just funny. How they're basically, really the entire movie, they're just two people who are in a. They shouldn't be there. They just don't belong in the middle of this, and they just happen to be there. And I think it's just. I think it made for some really funny comedy.
I agree with you. This movie actually, obviously, I didn't really have super high expectations of it, knowing it's a Sandler movie. And look, let me just go ahead and say, this movie actually did a lot of things right for me. Now, it did some things wrong, and I'll talk about those too. But I thought the cast was really fun in this. I liked everyone's chemistry. This movie actually, to me, yeah, that was so hilarious. Funny. This movie was actually so good to me, or good enough to me, I will say, that I actually don't even think it needed Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston in this. Not to, and now hear me out. I'm not saying they shouldn't have been in this. I'm glad they were. They were fantastic in this. This was actually one of my higher rated Adam Sandler movies ever. I actually really enjoyed this. But what I mean by that is I thought this movie was good enough to where the story was interesting enough and the cast was good enough and it was funny enough to where I think you could have had pretty much anybody in those roles. Yeah. And as long as they had decent character, the story still would have been good. I actually just thought Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston just made it better. Mm-hmm. They actually made it better. So this is one of those films where bringing in the big names to kind of lead a film actually made the film better. I thought the comedy that they brought wasn't too on the nose. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the quips between them,
it was clever,
they
sort
really
of
felt
like humor that was slid under, like you had to kind of be paying attention to get it.
Exactly. It was, they were the comedic relief in this movie, and they did a fantastic job of that. But unfortunately, I will say, I think this movie did some things wrong. The main one being, and I remember thinking this, I was really into this movie, actually surprisingly into this movie, right up until they got off of the boat. I thought this movie would have been a lot better had they stayed on that boat. Like if this had happened and they were out in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, exactly. I thought the setting was more interesting. It was a little more clever. And that's what I thought it was going to be. When we were watching this, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's a murder mystery that takes place on a yacht. Obviously, one of them's the killer. The whole thing's going to be there until the Coast Guard can get to him or whatever it might be, or whoever gets you when you're in international waters, the Navy. I don't even know. But I thought as soon as they got off of the boat, it was okay. But I really liked it leading up to that. And I didn't hate it after that either. Still a fun movie. And I'm glad I watched this one. But it did a lot of things right. So props to Sandler, props to Aniston, and the rest of the cast. It's a fun movie. It's a good kind of comedic murder mystery. That's what it's meant to be. They put in
some unbelievably funny characters. Like the Maharaja was just hilarious. Like he was just like, oh, brown person bows at white people. The white people bow back. Like that was great. Yeah. And then the guy, the
Formula
race
One
car driver
who can only
where he speaks like English the whole time, but you don't know that. And he's just
very fast.
Yes, very fast.
Very
fast.
Good. Yes.
Wow. How do you get into something like that?
Number one, yes.
You don't speak English, do you?
Very fast. Very fast.
It was just so funny because, it really, like in the whole time, he did such a good job of selling the fact that he couldn't understand them. At least, as far as we knew.
This movie actually, it's funny because when you watch it again, it pulls a lot from some popular murder mystery movies.
It's totally.
Obviously, the biggest nod, not like right on the nose, at the end. Edit this in, Chris, if you didn't see it, but did you notice they're riding on the Orient Express?
Yes, I did notice
when they're leaving?
I did.
That was funny, and as someone who's seen Murder on the Orient Express, obviously you can appreciate that. But even the plot, like when you watch Knives Out and then you watch this, it's a father who everyone's worried about his inheritance, and so he's murdered based over an inheritance deal. It's a very similar plot to what we've seen.
The best part, the butler did it.
The butler did it, right. This is a very similar plot to what we've seen elsewhere, and they know that. I think this movie was kind of supposed to be poking fun at murder mysteries.
Yeah. It was kind of
that's what this was.
What's it called? Oh God, I forgot the word. What's the word on it?
Like a spoof almost.
What's that?
Like a spoof.
Spoof, yeah.
Where they kind of like are. It's almost like a scary movie.
Exactly.
Movie where they're like making fun of the genre a little bit. They did it well. Yeah, they did it well. I was actually invested in it as a murder mystery up until they left the boat. And again, it's fine. It was cheesy after that, but I was actually kind of into it.
Yeah.
I liked where the story was going. I was still waiting to hear.
There was a lot of really funny moments, like when I don't remember her name either, but when she got hit in the neck by the blow dart, and Jennifer Aniston's just like trying to like charade who killed her. Claw, bear claw.
Claw.
Yeah. Oh God, you're
Claw,
so pretty
bear
when
claw.
you're. I'm sorry. I
that was
love
good.
that. I love that type of humor where it feels like it was improvised, which it may or may not have.
What'd you
been.
think of? Right. What'd you think of the cast for this? Because I thought that they did a good job of kind of bringing a diverse group of people together and throwing them all on this boat.
I think that they chose some incredible actors. I mean, so like they're not like huge name actors, but they're actors where you've seen them in other stuff, and you know it's like it's one of those movies where you have to look up every single person because you're like, what have I seen them in? What have I seen them in?
Right.
The actors did a great job. The Colonel was hilarious, and the guy who played the guy who played Sergey, the big guy, Siri, I would like to make a voice memo. Like just
Yeah.
everybody just did this movie a service with their character in like that they were all adding to the comedy in one way or another, and I think they just did a great job while still
Agreed.
making it interesting enough as a mystery where you wanted to like, hey, some guy died and you want to figure out who it is.
Right. And again, not a true murder mystery where you can kind of solve it just by watching
No.
it. You really have to be told what happens. I mean, there's clues kind of scattered. The inheritance law, like the 16th internet. What is it? The European
French
inheritance law or whatever. French.
Yeah,
inheritance.
the French inheritance
That's what
law.
it was. Yeah, they do put some clues in there, but I don't think watching this through, I don't think you could solve it without kind of being told who did
Yeah.
it. I'm not sure they like give you enough clues. You're kind of just along for the ride, and to me, that's what makes it a thriller.
Yeah.
That's what takes it away from being a murder mystery. That's what makes it just a thriller movie at that point.
Now, I think what the movie did the strongest, besides the comedy and besides all that, how real their marriage was. That it wasn't about them saying that they were each perfect. It wasn't about, like she mentioned so many, like multiple times that she wanted him to lose weight, or she made a fun of his double chin, and like, oh, apparently you can get a chin surgery. So I'm just saying it's an option.
Talking to a guy with one chin.
Yeah, exactly. They were very real, and I think it was really cool how, he did lie to his wife about not actually being a detective. Like he was a police officer in the entire movie. She thinks he's a detective, but when they finally get to the point where they're confronting each other about that, and she says, "Why did you lie?" And he says, "I was embarrassed." And I think that was to make this, I wouldn't say he's macho, but he's a police officer, like he's somebody who puts his life on the line. Yeah. He's got a dangerous job, and he's a man, and he doesn't show very much emotion, but to have this moment of weakness where he's telling his wife, look, I felt bad. I was embarrassed. That's why I lied, because I wanted to impress you. And I think that was just a great job of showing what a real marriage was like. And then their banter back and forth with her, making fun of each other and, stuff. They just did a great job of selling that they were actually married and that this was a real, genuine couple. And I think they did a great job. I
agree. Yeah, their chemistry was really good. Jennifer Aniston plays a very similar kind of role in almost all her movies, but she does an excellent job of it. She's consistently very good.
I've never seen her in a movie where I was like, she should be in a comedy. Except maybe the breakup.
Have you ever seen Horrible Bosses?
Yes. Was she in that?
Yeah, dude. She's the the nymphomaniac dentist lady.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah. So she's kind of that's a little bit bold even for her. And then what's the movie where they're like, it's the family and they're trying to like smuggle drugs back across the border? It's not really a family. We Are the Something.
Smiths?
Yeah, something like that. That was a funny movie too. But I don't think I've ever seen her in a movie and thought, man, she did a bad job.
True.
I think she plays kind of a similar role, but I really liked her in this, like I normally do.
I guess what I'm saying is
I
never expected her to be a comedian, in the sense that this, like she did a very good job with this.
She did.
Yeah.
This to me is where Adam Sandler shines, being not this like too over the top, just ridiculous, stupid humor guy, but just being a really relatable, just consistently funny character in a movie. He's very witty.
He has a strength with his charisma and his wittiness, and he's also a damn good actor. So if you combine the two, you don't have to be the the 40-year-old man who's going back to first grade.
Yeah, he almost, while they're on the boat and while things are taking place, he almost isn't even the main character in this movie.
Yeah.
He and Jennifer Aniston are almost not even the main characters for a
They're
while.
just there.
They kind of take a back seat. They're just sort of there, and it's just funny to see them interact with people. And then, of course, they're brought more to the front after they get off the boat and everything.
Yeah.
But I thought both of them did a phenomenal job in this. This was fun. Now, of course, things that it didn't do well, it is still a comedy. So you're looking at a murder mystery comedy. You can't help but feel like the whole thing's a little bit of like a spoof.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely pulls you out of the immediacy of everything. Like
Right.
you don't feel like it's imperative that this gets solved. You just want to see how it gets solved.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
You kind of just want to see it. It turns into a thriller, like I guess most murder
With the car
mysteries
scene,
do now.
the car chase and everything.
Yeah, with the car scenes, the car chases, and the shooting, and it turns into like a semi-action movie, which is fine. But this one's fun. It's not anything. There's no dialogue that's so well written in it. You're gonna think it's an award-winning movie. It's not so intense and dramatic. You're gonna be sweating and whatever. But it is fun. I would say the word for this movie is fun. Sandler and Aniston did a great job. Great chemistry. Really funny together and a good plot.
Yeah.
I thought this movie was well written and I would watch it again.
I love how at the very end when they don't know who's the murderer yet, and they're just like, we've got to go out there with confidence, and they go out there and they're like, okay, well, we know this and this and this, so it wasn't you, and it wasn't you. Holy shit, maybe we did do it.
Yeah, maybe we did do it.
He was like, did you do it?
Yeah.
And she's just like, really? Like, it's just very clever.
There was good comedy in
Yeah.
that. Got destroyed in the ratings, and I feel like Adam Sandler has a little bit of this weight on his back where a lot of his movies, people expect him to be Happy Gilmore, and if he's not, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
If he goes into a movie where he's not Happy Gilmore, the ratings are bad, and if he goes into a movie where he is Happy Gilmore, then they tell him it's a stupid movie, and his ratings are bad there. So again, he can't really get away from it. I thought the ratings on this one were way too harsh. So it got a 44% critic score, which, again, looking at it from a critic point of view, okay, I don't know that anything really stood out. But the audience score was 41% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's really low too. Lower than I would have given this myself, or lower than I will give it, I'll tell you that. So in the case of murder mystery, Mr. Christopher, what would the critic rate this fine film?
Well, looking at the evidence, I think the production value and the cinematography and everything involved with the making of the movie, I thought was great. Like, they were on a yacht. Like everything felt modern, and it was very, very. It did a good job of drawing us in, and getting us interested. Like he's like, like we're gonna go on the bus. You're gonna love the bus, and then they see the bus, and then they're like, yeah, we're not doing this. Like they go to the yacht, and
Let's go to the yacht.
They feel like the average couple who has they're acting the way I would if I was on a freaking yacht, like a super yacht like that. I'd be like, whoa, like
they'd be like, who are
they
all
don't
these
know
people?
how to talk to
I
anybody.
don't belong
it's just,
here.
Yeah, they absolutely do not belong. And I just think it's set up for some very good comedy. So the cinematography was, like, it wasn't out there or anything. It wasn't mind blowing, but it did a good job. The car chases were good. There was a sequence where, like, it was like somehow the camera was running up alongside the Lamborghini they were in, and I thought it was great. But I think overall the movie was just good. It was fun. It was entertaining. It was funny. There's not really much you can say about a movie like this. It's not
pretty unremarkable, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm assuming we're scoring this now.
Yeah, go ahead.
I give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
I think it was worth my time to watch it. If you haven't seen it and you're looking for something that's not too engaging and that's, you're gonna be able to just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Je ne sais quoi.
How you say? I don't know.
How you
I
say?
don't know. Just kind of.
It doesn't involve too
bit.
much of your attention. It's just it's
Right.
fun. It's entertainment. It's something that you can just kind of space out to for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
That is the perfect movie, especially if you're looking for something that's clever but not enough that where you have to watch the entire thing. It's a good movie to have a pizza to.
Sure.
Have a couple people over and just laugh, and you can talk, through the movie and not miss too much, and it's funny. It's just funny. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I think the word to sum this one up, well, not the word, but a word to sum this one up would kind of be unremarkable. I mean, it's kind of unique in that it's a comedy of a murder mystery, but it's not like an in-your-face comedy. I liked it. I thought Adam Sandler and Aniston were really good in this. And I thought that just this movie didn't really take any risks. You know what I mean? Like cinematography-wise or cinematically wise, whatever the word would be. It didn't really take any risks.
Cinematographically.
Yeah, cinematographically.
Brought to you by Cinematographically.
Oh God, it didn't really take any risks. It's actually pretty good. Adam Sandler. I really liked him in this. I thought he was funny, not too just stupid. You know, I thought he was kind of an intellectual humor in this. Like you said, kind of a movie to put on and just watch while you're eating a pizza or something. You know, it's fun. It's a funny movie. It's as a murder mystery, which is what I guess murder mystery comedy is what it's kind of trying to be. The story's unremarkable. You know, it turns into a thriller, which is, yeah, right. It turns into a thriller like they all do. This one to me, I'm somewhere between a 6 and a 7. I feel like 6 is too harsh and 7 is maybe a little too good. Just because
I felt like that too. I rounded it up for them.
I'm gonna give it a 6.5, just because it's a relatively unremarkable movie. Great job to Sandler and Aniston; they're just good actors and actresses. You know what I mean? But not really. You don't really come away with this one like calling your friends and telling them to watch it or whatever. It's just a fun Netflix movie. So
yeah, it's
6.5.
Not gonna win many awards, if anything.
Exactly. So 6.5 out of 10 for me, and then a 7 out of 10 for you. So that's it. That is the Critic and the Common Man review of Murder Mystery. This one's on Netflix right now. You can go watch it. And that's it, man. With that just about wraps up Very Murder Mysterious episode 7. The mystery of ratings has been solved.
Would you say that this is case closed?
I would indeed, my good friend, say that this is case closed. Or in the case of perhaps the greatest detective in the world, Hercule Poirot, we all did it. I don't know. I like this one. Very fun week, murder mystery week. If you're still with us, comment down below. Let us know what you think. Keep an eye out on the Instagram for some new stuff coming.
What's next?
What's next?
Tell us what's next.
Yeah, potentially some giveaways coming up here in the future.
Yeah, we were talking very seriously about doing some giveaways to increase engagement and really just say thank you to the people who do follow us. So
definitely, we're gonna give away Chris's car, and he's got a spare bedroom in his apartment that he's gonna give away for free.
It is a classic Porsche 911. So
so good luck.
Red.
Yeah, good luck. That's it. Episode 7, our murder mystery episode. Case
Thank
closed.
you guys for watching.
Case closed, detective. That's it. Critic and the Common Man. See you guys
later.
Peace.